Hazel Marie Brennan had 3 minutes to convince a stranger to believe the unbelievable. Or at 8 p.m. that night, she'd never go home again. For 4 days, the 7-year-old had been failed by every adult who should have protected her. Her school signed papers without checking. Police marked her case low priority. 13 witnesses saw something wrong, and every single one looked away. But when that silver Honda stopped for gas at exit 67 on Interstate 40, when Hazel saw the massive biker 3 pumps over, tattooed, bearded, the scariest-looking man in the parking lot, she made a choice that would mobilize 150 Hell's Angels across 3 states. She chose to trust the terrifying stranger. Because she understood what adults forget. Monsters don't wear leather vests. They wear polo shirts and friendly smiles. What she hid in that stranger's boot, a pink candy wrapper with 7 sentences, would change everything. Before we continue, please subscribe and comment where you're watching from. We love seeing our community around the world. Please, just please. The words came out so quietly that Hazel wasn't even sure she'd said them out loud. Wednesday afternoon, 2:18 p.m., standing in the hallway of Oakwood Elementary School, watching a man she'd never seen before show papers to Ms. Morgan, the assistant principal who always smelled like coffee and never made eye contact. Hazel's fingers gripped the straps of her backpack. Pink. Hello Kitty. Her mom had bought it for her 8th birthday. Except Hazel was only 7, and her mom had been dead for 13 months, and this was all wrong. Everything's in order, Ms. Morgan said, barely glancing at the documents. Emergency custody transfer due to father's deployment extension. We're happy to release Hazel to approved guardianship. The man, Robert, he'd said his name was Robert, smiled, friendly, warm, like somebody's uncle at Thanksgiving. 38 seconds. That's how long Ms. Morgan looked at the papers before signing them. Hazel wanted to scream, wanted to run, wanted to tell Ms. Morgan that her dad was in Japan, yes, but he'd never mentioned this Robert person. Never said anyone but Grandma and Grandpa were supposed to pick her up. But Robert's hand was on her shoulder now. Gentle. The kind of touch that looked protective from a distance. And his other hand was in his pocket, fingers wrapped around something that Hazel had learned to recognize over the past 4 months since he'd started appearing at school pickup, at the grocery store near Grandma's house, at the park where she played on Saturdays. A gun. He'd shown it to her once. Just once. Pulled it out in his car, let her see it, then put it away. Never said a word, didn't need to. Say goodbye to your school, Hazel. Robert's voice was pleasant, public-friendly. We've got a long drive ahead. Ms. Morgan waved, already turning back to her office. Paperwork done. Problem solved. Next task waiting. Hazel walked toward the door. Robert's hand never left her shoulder. Tap. Her purple light-up sneakers flashed with each step. The left lace was untied. She'd noticed that morning, but Robert had been in a hurry, yanking her from the motel bathroom before she could finish tying them. The sneakers had been a birthday gift from her dad before he deployed. They lit up red and blue. She'd loved them so much she'd worn them to bed the first night. Now every flash of light felt like a distress signal nobody could see. 2:24 p.m. Hazel's last sight of Oakwood Elementary was Ms. Morgan's back, disappearing into her office. The door closing with a soft click. By 2:45 p.m., Grandma Dorothy was calling 911. By 3 p.m., Officer Dale Mitchell was marking the missing person report, low priority, probable family dispute. By 6 p.m., Robert had sent the ransom email. 425,000 Bitcoin. You have 72 hours. Contact police equals she dies. But that was Wednesday. This was Friday. And Hazel had been learning. 4 days is both forever and no time at all when you're 7 years old, and every adult who's supposed to protect you has failed. Friday morning, 8 a.m. Day 4 of captivity. Hazel woke up in a different motel room, the third in 3 days, her stomach so empty it had stopped hurting and started feeling numb. Robert was on the phone in the bathroom. Door thin, walls cheap. Hazel could hear every word. No, they haven't paid yet. Pause. I know. If they don't pay by 8 p.m. tonight, she's yours for $187,000. Longer pause. Same cabin as last time. Vincent's expecting us. Pause. Don't worry about the cop. Mitchell's already buried the case. Hazel's fingers found the small plastic toy under her pillow. A pink Starburst candy wrapper. The only piece of candy Robert had given her in 4 days. One single piece. Yesterday morning, when she'd started crying so hard, he was worried she'd make noise in the motel lobby. She'd saved the wrapper. And she'd stolen something else. An eyebrow pencil from the bathroom counter. Brown. Drugstore brand. The kind that rolls away when you set it down. Robert didn't know she had it. Didn't know she'd been practicing writing with it on the inside of her sock. Small letters. Shaky but readable. Because Hazel Marie Brennan might only be 7 years old, might be small for her age and scared out of her mind, but she was reading at 4th grade level, and she understood something important. Adults lied. The police lied. Ms. Morgan lied. Even the highway patrol officer who'd pulled them over yesterday for speeding had lied when she'd asked if everything was okay, and Hazel had wanted to scream, "No, I'm kidnapped! Please help!" But Robert's hand had tightened on her wrist until her bones creaked, and she'd just nodded, silent, trapped. But there was one group of people Hazel had noticed during their travels. One type of person Robert seemed nervous around. Bikers. The big ones. The ones with patches on their vests and motorcycles that sounded like thunder. The ones that looked scary, but always seemed to be nice to kids. She'd seen them at a rest stop 2 days ago, one of them helping a little boy find his mom. Another one buying ice cream for a family whose card got declined. Robert had steered her away from them immediately. Hurried her back to the car. Locked the doors. Which meant Robert was scared of them. Which meant maybe, just maybe, they were the ones who could help. Friday, 4:30 p.m. 6 hours until the deadline. 3.5 hours until Hazel would be at Vincent's cabin in White County, Arkansas, where she'd be handed over to Marcus Webb like a piece of furniture being resold. Robert pulled into the Pilot truck stop at exit 67. The big green sign promised food, fuel, and restrooms. 18-wheelers lined up in neat rows, families traveling for the weekend. The smell of diesel and fried food mixing in the warm spring air. Temperature, 72 degrees. Golden hour approaching, sun low in the sky, casting long shadows across the asphalt. And there, parked at pumps 9, 10, and 11, were 3 Harley-Davidson motorcycles. Chrome gleaming, leather vests with patches. 3 men talking, laughing, stretching after a long ride. One of them was massive, 6'4" at least, full beard, gray streaked, tattoos covering both arms, leather vest with patches Hazel couldn't read from inside the car, but she could see the main one, a skull with wings. He looked terrifying, which meant he was perfect. "I need to use the bathroom," Hazel said. Her voice came out small, shaky, exactly how Robert expected her to sound. Defeated. Broken. Robert glanced at her. Suspicious. Always suspicious. "Make it quick." and I'm standing outside the door. 4:37 p.m. Inside the women's bathroom, Hazel had maybe 90 seconds before Robert would start pounding on the door, asking if she was okay, using that fake, concerned voice that made her skin crawl. Her hands shook as she unfolded the pink starburst wrapper, smoothed it flat on the bathroom counter. The eyebrow pencil felt huge in her small fingers. Too big. Hard to control. But she'd practiced this. He's not my dad. Her handwriting wobbled. The pencil smudged. She didn't care. He has a gun. 60 seconds left. Her heart hammered so hard she could hear it in her ears. Says he'll sell me at 8 tonight cabin in White County, Arkansas. 40 seconds. The wrapper was so small. Every word had to count. Please help. My name is Hazel Brennan. 20 seconds. One more line. The most important one. Grandpa is Martin Brennan, Asheville, North Carolina. 15 seconds. She folded the wrapper. Tiny. Tight. Small enough to hide. Tucked it into her sock. The left one. The one that had a small hole near the ankle. Flushed the toilet even though she hadn't used it. Ran water. Made normal sounds. Hazel? Robert's voice through the door. Warning edge underneath the fake patience. Coming! 4:42 p.m. They exited the gas station. Robert's hand on her shoulder again, steering her toward the car. And that's when Hazel saw her chance. The big biker, the terrifying one with the gray beard and the skull wing patches, was walking toward the convenience store entrance. Alone. His brothers still at their bikes, packing saddlebags. 20 feet away. 15. 10. Hazel's left shoelace was still untied. Had been untied all day. Robert had stopped noticing. 5 feet. She made her choice. Stumbled. Let her foot catch on the untied lace. Fell forward with a small cry. Not too loud, just enough. Crashed right into the biker's legs. His hands caught her automatically. Big hands, scarred knuckles, gentle grip despite the size. Whoa there, kiddo. You okay? 3 seconds. That's all Hazel had. 3 seconds while Robert was still 2 steps behind, reaching for her. She looked up, met the biker's eyes. Dark eyes. Confused. Then she saw it. Something shifting. Recognition of her fear. Her small hand touched his boot. Black leather. Steel-toed. Worn from years of riding. She mouthed one word, silent. Please. Then Robert's hand closed on her wrist, yanking. Hard enough to hurt. Sorry about that, Robert's voice, cheerful, embarrassed parent tone. She's so clumsy, never watches where she's going. No problem. The biker's voice was measured. His eyes stayed on Hazel for a half-second longer. She saw him notice the bruises on her upper arm, where Robert's grip had left finger-shaped marks days ago. But then Robert was pulling her away, walking fast toward the car, his hand a vice on her wrist. Don't ever do that again, he hissed once they were out of earshot, smiling the whole time in case anyone was watching. You hear me? Don't. Ever. Hazel nodded, tears streaking down her face now. Real ones. Because she'd done it. She'd hidden the note. But she didn't know if he'd found it. Didn't know if he'd believe her. Didn't know if... 4:45 p.m. Robert's car pulled out of the gas station, heading east on I-40. 6 more exits until they'd turn north toward White County, toward Vincent's cabin, toward 8 p.m., toward the end. Hazel twisted in her seat, looking back through the rear window. The biker was walking into the convenience store. Normal. Unhurried. Like nothing had happened. Her note was still in his boot. She'd felt it slip into the gap between the leather and his sock when she'd touched him. Felt it catch. Felt it stay. Now all she could do was hope and pray that scary-looking people really were the safest ones. 4:46 p.m. Silas Iron Kane walked into the Pilot convenience store thinking about beef jerky and coffee. 3 hours left on the ride to Memphis. Meeting with the Tennessee chapter tonight to discuss the upcoming charity run for children's hospitals. Routine stop. Routine day. He grabbed a bag of teriyaki jerky, headed toward the coffee station. And that's when he felt it. Something in his left boot, not a rock, not his imagination. Something that didn't belong. Iron reached down. Casual. Like he was just adjusting his bootlace. His fingers found it immediately. Small. Folded tight. Wedged between the leather and his sock. Pink paper. He pulled it out. Unfolded it. Saw shaky, childish handwriting in brown eyebrow pencil. And the world stopped. He's not my dad. He has a gun. Says he'll sell me at 8 tonight. Iron read it 3 times. 10 seconds that felt like 10 hours. The little girl who'd crashed into him. Green eyes with gold flecks. Strawberry blonde hair, tangled and unwashed. Bruises on her arm. That desperate silent please she'd mouthed. The man who'd pulled her away too fast, gripping too hard, smiling too wide. My name is Hazel Brennan. Grandpa is Martin Brennan, Asheville, North Carolina. Iron's hands were shaking. Actually shaking. He was 51 years old, former Marine, president of the Hells Angels Arkansas chapter, and his hands were shaking like a rookie's, because he'd seen it, seen her fear, noticed the bruises, and for one critical half-second, he'd considered saying something, then talked himself out of it. Not my business. Probably just a rough parenting moment. Don't want to cause a scene. The exact same thoughts 13 other people had probably had this week while Hazel Marie Brennan was being trafficked across state lines. But she'd given him one more chance. One impossible, brave, brilliant chance. A note in a biker's boot. Iron pulled out his phone. Dialed without thinking. Raymond. His voice came out steady despite the adrenaline flooding his system. I need every brother within 200 miles at my location, now! Iron? Hawk's voice confused. What's going on? We've got a kidnapped child. The words felt surreal coming out of his mouth. 7 years old, being transported to a sale location. We have approximately 3 hours before she disappears forever. Silence on the other end. 3 seconds of it. Then, say no more. We're coming. The line went dead. And that was it. No questions about proof or evidence. No concerns about legal complications. Just brotherhood. Just action. Because that's what it meant to wear the patch. Iron walked out of the convenience store. His 2 riding brothers, Tank and Chains, saw his face and stopped mid-conversation. Mount up, Iron said. We're hunting. Now, I know what you might be imagining. 150 Hells Angels roaring up to hunt a kidnapper, fists ready, chaos brewing. And maybe years ago, that's exactly what would have happened. But Iron had learned something in 30 years of wearing the patch. Real strength wasn't about how hard you could hit. It was about how smart you could be when a life hung in the balance. This wasn't going to be a brawl. This was going to be a chess game played at 80 miles per hour. And they had 3 hours and 14 minutes to win. 4:52 p.m. 6 minutes since Iron discovered the note. The Pilot truck stop was transforming into a command center. Raymond Hawk Torres arrived first. Pulled into the parking lot on his Harley at 4:55 p.m., riding solo from his house 15 miles south. Former detective. Quit the force 8 years ago when he'd seen too many cases buried because the suspect had connections, too many investigations stopped because the victim wasn't important enough. He'd promised himself then, never again would he let bureaucracy stand between him and justice. "Show me." Hawk's voice was all business. Iron handed him the note. Watched Hawk's expression go from curious to horrified to coldly analytical in the span of 10 seconds. "Hazel Brennan." Hawk pulled out his phone, fingers flying across the screen. "Give me 2 minutes." 1 minute, 43 seconds later, Hawk had pulled up a missing person report filed by Martin and Dorothy Brennan of Asheville, North Carolina. Filed Wednesday at 3:15 p.m. Granddaughter. Hazel Marie Brennan, age 7, strawberry blonde hair, last seen being picked up from Oakwood Elementary by approved guardian Robert Hayes. Report status, low priority. Investigating officer, Dale Mitchell, Benton County Sheriff's Department. Last update, family dispute likely, child probably safe with relative. Will follow up Monday. Monday, 3 days from now, 72 hours after Hazel would have been sold. "There's your system failure," Hawk said quietly. His jaw was clenched so tight, Iron could see the muscle jumping. "Cop buried it." "Can you trace the car?" Iron asked. "Not without official access." Hawk's fingers kept moving. "But I can do something better. I can find every traffic camera, every gas station security feed, every truck stop surveillance system between here and White County. We know what time he left this location. We know what direction he went, and we know where he's going." "How long?" "Give me 20 minutes and I'll have his license plate. Give me 40 and I'll have his exact route mapped." 5:03 p.m. Marcus Tank Williams rolled in, leading a pack of 12 bikes. Tank was 6'2", 260 pounds of muscle, earned from 20 years of powerlifting. Former bouncer. Intimidating as hell to look at. Also the gentlest man Iron had ever met when it came to kids. "We're blocking highways?" Tank asked after Iron showed him the note. "Every exit between here and White County," Iron confirmed. 3-hour window. "We're going to put 150 motorcycles on I-40 East and create a net he can't slip through." "How many brothers we got rolling?" "Arkansas Chapter 47 confirmed. Tennessee 53 en route. Mississippi, another 50 mobilizing from Jackson." 150 bikes. Tank's grin was fierce. "Let's see him outrun that." 5:11 p.m. Elena Doc Reeves arrived in her pickup truck. She didn't ride a bike, but she was the only female officer in the Arkansas chapter and the only one with paramedic training. 15 years of emergency medicine. Trauma specialist. Child psychology certified. "Where are we on this?" Doc asked, reading the note Iron handed her. "Mobilization in progress. Hawk's tracking the vehicle. We need you ready for when we find her." "She's going to be terrified," Doc said quietly. 4 days of captivity, threat of being sold, and then 150 bikers show up. She won't know we're the good guys." "That's why you'll be the first one she sees," Iron said. "Not me, not Tank, you. Because you'll be the least scary person here, and she needs to know immediately that she's safe." Doc nodded. "I'll grab my medical kit, and I'm calling St. Vincent's in Little Rock. Let them know we might have an incoming child trauma case. Better to have them ready and not need them than the reverse." 5:17 p.m. Jacob Chains Murphy, road captain, 55 years old, 33 years riding, logistics coordinator for every major club event, was on his phone coordinating the net. Arkansas Brothers, position at exits 47, 52, 67, 82, and 95. Tennessee Brothers, cover exits 23, 35, and 41. Mississippi Brothers, set up south roadblocks at Highway 63 and Highway 167 intersections. His voice was calm, methodical, like he was organizing a funeral procession instead of a rescue operation. Because in a way, he was. If they failed, this would become a funeral. Every exit covered, Chains confirmed at 5:23 p.m. We've got eyes on every possible route between here and White County. The moment Hawk IDs the vehicle, we'll have 20 bikes within 3 minutes of his location. 5:28 p.m. Iron stood in the parking lot watching his brothers arrive in waves. Chrome and leather and thunder. Organized chaos that looked intimidating, but was actually military precision earned from decades of riding together. Not a protest fueled by anger. A rescue powered by purpose. And every single one of them knew what this note meant. What Hazel had risked to get it to them. What would happen if they failed? Iron looked at the note one more time. Pink starburst wrapper. Brown eyebrow pencil. Handwriting that shook because the hand holding the pencil had been shaking. A 7-year-old girl's last hope. Hidden in a biker's boot. If you believe children deserve protectors, comment, "We're coming for you, Hazel," and subscribe. Because what happens next will prove that brotherhood means standing between evil and the innocent, no matter what it costs. 5:40 p.m. 2 hours and 20 minutes until deadline. Hawk looked up from his laptop, set up on the tailgate of Doc's truck. Got him. Every conversation in the parking lot stopped. White 2019 Honda Accord. Arkansas plates. KDR 4782. Registered to Robert James Hayes, 847 Pinewood Drive, Fayetteville. And get this, Hawk's voice went flat, the tone he used when he was forcing himself to stay professional despite what he'd just found. He's got a record. What kind of record? Iron stepped closer. 2019, Benton County. Missing person case involving his stepdaughter, Melissa Hayes. 7 years old at the time. Case was filed by the mother, Karen Hayes, after Melissa disappeared following a medical emergency. Officer Dale Mitchell investigated. The same officer who'd marked Hazel's case, low priority. Melissa was never found, Hawk continued. Case went cold after 6 days. Karen Hayes took her own life 8 months later. And here's what makes my blood freeze. Robert collected $163,000 from a life insurance policy on Melissa taken out 2 months before she disappeared. Silence. 23 men standing in that parking lot, all wearing cuts, all processing what that meant. He's done this before, Tank said quietly. And he got away with it, Hawk confirmed. Because Dale Mitchell buried the investigation. Same cop, same pattern. File the report, mark it low priority. Let it disappear. Iron's hands clenched into fists, forced himself to breathe, to think, to be strategic instead of reactive. We need FBI, he said. This is beyond local jurisdiction, beyond anything we can handle alone. Already on it, Hawk held up his phone. I've got a contact, Special Agent Sarah Bennett, Little Rock Field Office. I worked with her when I was on the force. She's solid. Call her. Now. 5:47 p.m. While Hawk made the call, Chains was coordinating the net. Brothers, listen up. His voice carried across the parking lot. We've got 20 bikes positioned at exit 52. Another 15 at exit 82. Target vehicle is currently between here and exit 95, heading east. Speed approximately 67 miles per hour. We're going to funnel him to exit 82 using the Mississippi brothers as a shepherd team. Shepherd team? One of the younger prospects, Jared asked. We don't chase him, Chains explained. We guide him. Bikes appear in his rear view. Not threatening, just present. He speeds up, we match his speed. He tries to exit early, we've got more bikes waiting. We make exit 82 look like his best option. Then when he commits to the exit ramp, we close the trap, Tank finished. 6:03 p.m. The formation began. From 5 different locations, motorcycles rolled out in disciplined columns. Not racing, not aggressive, just present, visible, coordinated. The Mississippi brothers picked up Robert's Honda on I-40 East near exit 73. 6 bikes, spread across 3 lanes, maintaining a distance of 200 yards behind him, close enough to keep visual contact, far enough to not spook him into doing something desperate. Target acquired, came the radio call. White Accord, Arkansas plates confirmed. He's seen us. Speed increasing to 72. Match his speed, Chains responded. Don't close distance. Let him think he can outrun you. Inside the Honda, Robert Hayes was sweating. 6 motorcycles. All Hell's Angels patches. All following him. Coincidence? Had to be coincidence. But his hands were shaking on the steering wheel. Hazel sat in the passenger seat, silent. She'd stopped crying an hour ago. Stopped talking. Just stared out the window with those green eyes that reminded Robert too much of Melissa. Too much of the last time he'd done this. Too much of the moment he'd decided that $163,000 was worth more than a 7-year-old's life. We're fine, Robert said out loud. To himself or to Hazel, he wasn't sure. We're fine. They're just bikers, just riding the same highway. Coincidence. Exit 82 appeared ahead. 2 miles. The motorcycles behind him maintained their distance. Professional. Calm. Robert took the exit. 6:48 p.m. 1 hour and 12 minutes until deadline. Robert's Honda crested the exit ramp, and what he saw made his foot hit the brake instinctively. Motorcycles. 50 of them. Lined up in a perfect semicircle blocking the intersection at the end of the ramp. Chrome gleaming in the fading evening light. Leather vests identical. Engines running but riders standing beside their bikes. Still. Silent. Waiting. Behind Robert, the 6 bikes that had been following him stopped at the base of the ramp, blocking retreat. To his left and right, more bikes materialized from access roads, closing in with mechanical precision. Not racing, not threatening, just there. Box complete. Robert threw the car in reverse. Tires squealed. The Honda lurched backward and stopped 3 feet from Tank's motorcycle parked directly behind him. Tank himself standing beside it, 6'2", 260 pounds, arms crossed. Not moving, not approaching, just standing. Robert's breathing was ragged now, panicked. His hand went to the glove compartment, to the gun. Then a voice, amplified, calm. Robert James Hayes, turn off your engine. Step out of the vehicle with your hands visible. We have FBI en route. We have evidence of kidnapping and trafficking. The child in your car is going home today. This can end peacefully, or it can end badly. You choose. The voice belonged to Iron, standing 20 feet away, holding a borrowed police megaphone that Hawk had somehow procured in the past hour. Robert's hand froze on the glove compartment. Around him, 50 motorcycles, another 30 visible down the highway, more arriving every minute, 150 Hell's Angels, every exit covered, every escape route blocked. The most coordinated, disciplined, absolutely terrifying display of controlled strength Robert had ever seen. And not one of them was approaching the car. Not one was threatening violence. They were just present, waiting, patient. Like they had all the time in the world. Like Robert had nowhere left to run. 6:52 p.m. Robert's engine cut off. His hands appeared through the driver's window, shaking, empty. "I'm coming out! Don't shoot! I'm coming out!" Nobody had guns drawn. Nobody had weapons at all except the presence of 150 men who'd decided that this particular child was worth mobilizing for. Robert stepped out, hands up, face pale. He was wearing khaki pants and a blue polo shirt. Clean cut, professional looking. The kind of man who could convince a school administrator to release a child with 38 seconds of document review. The kind of man who looked nothing like a monster. Which was exactly what made him so dangerous. Tank walked forward. Slow. Deliberate. Stopped 10 feet away. Face the car. Hands on the roof. Feet apart. Robert complied, shaking the entire time. "I didn't do anything. I'm her uncle. I have legal custody papers. This is a misunderstanding. We'll let the FBI sort that out," Tank said calmly. Inside the Honda, Hazel was hyperventilating. Small gasps, rapid breathing, hands pressed against the passenger window. Watching strange men surround the car, watching Robert get searched. She didn't know these were the good guys. Didn't know the note had worked. All she knew was Robert was gone from the driver's seat, and there were dozens of scary-looking men everywhere, and she was trapped, and... Doc appeared at the passenger window. Alone. No vest. Just a woman in jeans and a t-shirt, kneeling so she was at Hazel's eye level. She tapped the window gently. Hazel's eyes locked on hers. "Hazel." Doc's voice was soft enough to barely carry through the glass. "My name is Elena. The big man with the gray beard, his name is Iron. You put a note in his boot at the gas station. He got it. We all got it. We came for you, sweetie. You're safe now." Hazel's face crumpled. She tried to unlock the door, but her hands were shaking too badly. Doc reached for the handle. Locked. Child safety locks engaged. "Tank," Doc called. "Keys." Tank retrieved them from Robert's pocket, tossed them to Doc. The passenger door opened, and Hazel Marie Brennan, 7 years old, 4 days kidnapped, 6 hours from being sold, barely 40 pounds from malnutrition, covered in bruises and rope burns and cigarette scars, fell into Doc's arms, sobbing. "I want my grandpa. I want my grandpa. I want my grandpa." "I know, baby, I know." Doc held her, careful of the bruises. "We're calling him right now. He's been looking for you. He never stopped looking. Now here's something important you need to understand about what happened next. Everyone expected chaos. Expected the bikers to rough up Robert Hayes. Expected shouting, threats, maybe violence. That's the stereotype, right? Big scary bikers find a child predator and things get ugly fast. But that's not what happened. What happened was this. 150 men who'd spent decades learning discipline, learning patience, learning that real justice required precision. They stood there in complete silence while Iron called the FBI, while Doc cared for Hazel, while Tank secured Robert. Not one person touched Robert except to search him and move him to a sitting position against his car. Not one person raised their voice. Not one person stepped out of line. Because they understood something the stereotypes didn't. Violence would complicate the case, would give Robert's lawyer ammunition, would turn heroes into vigilantes in the eyes of the law. And these men didn't care about looking tough. They cared about Hazel going home. And they cared about Robert Hayes never touching another child again. So they waited for the system to work. But this time, they made damn sure the system did its job. 7:02 p.m. FBI. Special Agent Sarah Bennett arrived with 12 federal agents and 23 Arkansas State Police units. The scene they found wasn't chaos. It was the most organized crime scene any of them had ever witnessed. Robert Hayes, secured, searched, rights not yet read, that was FBI's job, separated from the vehicle. Hazel Brennan, safe with Doc, medically assessed, dehydrated, malnourished, multiple injuries documented, wrapped in a blanket someone had pulled from a saddlebag. Evidence, vehicle unlocked and photographed by Hawk. Using his phone, nothing touched, chain of custody preserved. Witnesses, 3 already identified and waiting to give statements. Who organized this? Agent Bennett asked, looking around at 150 bikers standing in perfect formation, none of them causing problems, all of them clearly ready to testify. Hazel did. Iron handed her the pink starburst wrapper in a plastic sandwich bag, evidence preservation courtesy of the same saddlebag that had produced the blanket. We just showed up. Bennett read the note. Her expression shifted from professional to horrified to grimly determined. I need statements from everyone who had contact with the victim or suspect. I need that vehicle processed. I need... Already done, Hawk interrupted. He handed her a folder. Timeline of events. List of witnesses. Documentation of the missing person report filed Wednesday and buried by Officer Dale Mitchell of Benton County Sheriff's Department. Security footage from this gas station showing Hazel's plea. Traffic camera data tracking Robert's vehicle across 3 states. Bank records showing suspicious cash deposits into Mitchell's account, matching the timeline of previous missing child cases. Bennett stared at him. Who the hell are you? Former detective. And I really, really hate corrupt cops. 7:15 p.m. The witness statements began. Witness 1. Jennifer Mason, 24, gas station clerk. Jennifer stood in front of Agent Bennett, hands shaking, barely able to meet her eyes. I saw her, Jennifer whispered. Around 4:35, maybe 4:37. The little girl with the strawberry blonde hair. She asked to use the bathroom. Her voice was shaking, like she was terrified, and I saw... Jennifer's voice broke. I saw the bruises on her arm, yellow-purple ones, old, and I heard her say please so quietly, like she was begging. What did you do? Bennett asked, tone neutral, but Jennifer heard the judgment anyway. Nothing. The word came out hollow. I thought she was car sick. Thought it was just a rough road trip. I see hundreds of families every day and I didn't want to assume. Didn't want to cause trouble. Didn't want to be wrong. Did the man with her do anything suspicious? He stood outside the bathroom door the whole time. And when they left, he was holding her wrist really tight. But I told myself that's just how some parents are with kids who wander. I told myself it wasn't my business. Jennifer looked up, tears streaming down her face. I could have saved her 4 days ago, if I'd just asked. If I'd just called someone. She was right there in front of me, and I did nothing. You're not the only one, Bennett said quietly. Witness 2. Dale Simmons, 58, truck driver. Dale had been pulled from his rig at a rest stop 30 miles back. Brought to the scene by state police after Hawk's database search flagged him as having been at the truck stop when Hazel's note was delivered. I saw the guy dragging her, Dale said, voice rough with shame. Thursday morning, this same truck stop. She was trying to slow down, feet dragging, and he yanked her forward. I thought... He stopped, started again. I thought she was being a brat. Thought he was just a frustrated parent dealing with a difficult kid. Did you consider intervening? For about 5 seconds. Dale's jaw worked. Then I told myself to mind my own business. I've been driving for 32 years. I've learned not to get involved in other people's family drama. Except this wasn't drama. This was a kidnapping happening right in front of me, and I chose not to see it. We need your formal statement. I'll give you whatever you need. Dale looked over at where Doc was still holding Hazel. But it won't change the fact that I had a chance to save her, and I drove away instead. Witness 3. Officer Lisa Grant, 44, Arkansas Highway Patrol Officer Grant had been called to the scene. When she arrived and saw Hazel, she'd gone pale, excused herself, thrown up behind her patrol car, because she recognized the little girl. Thursday, 3 p.m., Highway 67, mile marker 142. Grant's voice was mechanical, professional training overriding emotional devastation. I pulled over a white Honda Accord for speeding, 68 in a 55 zone. Driver was Robert Hayes. Passenger was a small child, female, blonde hair. Did you speak to the child? Yes. Grant closed her eyes. I asked, everything okay, miss? The child nodded. I ran the driver's license. It was clean. No warrants, no flags. I gave him a warning and let them go. Did the child say anything? No. She just stared straight ahead. And I thought she was bored, or sulking, or just didn't want to talk to a cop. I didn't... Grant's voice cracked. I didn't ask her to step out of the vehicle. Didn't check her ID. Didn't verify their relationship. Didn't look for injuries. I had probable cause to do a safety check, and I didn't use it. You followed procedure, Bennett said. Procedure isn't enough. Grant looked at Hazel. I'm a mother. I have 2 daughters. One is 8 years old. If someone had my daughter in that car, I'd want the officer who pulled them over to look closer, to ask harder questions, to trust their instincts when something felt off. I failed this child. I'm requesting mandatory review of my actions and additional training. Bennett made a note. Noted. We'll need your full report. You'll have it within the hour. 7:32 p.m. While statements were being taken at exit 82, simultaneous operations were unfolding across 3 states. Fayetteville, Arkansas, 7:35 p.m. FBI. Agents arrived at 847 Pinewood Drive, Robert Hayes' registered address. Warrant issued based on evidence collected and Hazel's statement. Inside the apartment, they found Robert's laptop seized and bagged. Initial forensic review revealed search history. How to demand Bitcoin ransom. Untraceable cryptocurrency wallets. Child trafficking prices. How long before missing person becomes presumed dead. Email drafts. Multiple versions of ransom demands. Robert had practiced his wording. Deleted files. Messages with Marcus Webb discussing merchandise delivery schedules. Photos. Surveillance images of Hazel at school, at her grandparents' house, playing in the park. He'd been stalking her for months. Financial documents showing casino debts totaling $287,000 to Cherokee Casino, North Carolina. Loan shark obligations, $95,000. Payment demanded by April 15th, tomorrow. Previous insurance payout from 2019. $163,000 for Melissa Hayes, his stepdaughter. Melissa's case file, printed, kept in Robert's desk drawer, as if he'd been studying his own previous crime for reference. White County, Arkansas, Vincent's cabin, 7:38 p.m. 23 state police and FBI agents surrounded an isolated cabin on 30 acres of wooded property. Rental agreement in the name of Vincent Hayes, Robert's younger brother. Vincent was on the porch when they arrived, smoking a cigarette, wearing camouflage pants and a tank top. Former military, dishonorably discharged for theft in 2017. When he saw the agents, he ran, made it 47 feet before being tackled by 2 agents and a state trooper. Inside the cabin, agents found the evidence room, Melissa Hayes's DNA, hair, blood, fingerprints throughout the basement. Her backpack from 2019, still containing her school ID rope, zip ties, and locks installed on one bedroom door from the outside. Maps with routes highlighted between Arkansas and Memphis. A whiteboard with names, ages, and dollar amounts, trafficking ledger, photos of other children, evidence of broader trafficking network. The current preparation. Fresh groceries purchased yesterday. Vincent had been expecting Hazel's arrival. Sedatives in medicine cabinet. Burner phone with texts to Marcus Webb. Cabin ready. Package arrives 8 p.m. Confirm pickup schedule. The kill room. Basement corner with drain installed cleaning chemicals, industrial strength. Plastic sheeting shovels and lime in the storage shed outside. Because here's what the evidence proved. Robert had never intended for any ransom to be paid. The ransom was theater, pressure, a way to make the grandparents desperate while he prepared to sell Hazel to Marcus Webb for $187,000, more money than the ransom demanded, with no risk of tracking or law enforcement involvement. And if Marcus didn't want her? If she became a liability? Vincent's cabin had been designed to make problems disappear. Melissa Hayes had disappeared in this cabin in 2019. Her remains were found 6 hours later, buried on the property's northeast corner, wrapped in the same plastic sheeting currently stored in Vincent's shed. Memphis, Tennessee, 7:41 p.m. Marcus Webb was arrested outside Mike's gambling den on the east side of town. He was counting cash when FBI agents surrounded him. $340 in 50s and 20s. Winnings from an evening of poker. Just another normal Friday night for a man who bought children for resale. When they searched his phone, the burner he used for trafficking business, they found text thread with Robert. Package confirmed. $187,000. Same location as 2019. I'll have transport ready. GPS history. Showing 7 trips to Vincent's cabin over the past 4 years. Photos of other children with prices listed. $220,000. $195,000. $240,000. Contact list of 12 buyers across 6 states. Marcus Webb had been operating for 11 years. Bought and sold 43 children. Most were never found. Until tonight. Benton County Sheriff's Department, 7:44 p.m. Officer Dale Mitchell was in his office when FBI agents walked in. He was eating a sandwich, pastrami on rye, watching highlights from last night's basketball game on his computer. Just another evening shift for a detective who'd buried 2 missing child cases in 5 years. Detective Mitchell, Agent Bennett's voice was ice. We need to have a conversation about your handling of the Hazel Brennan case and the Melissa Hayes case, and your bank account showing $8,000 cash deposits that coincidentally match the timeline of both investigations. Mitchell's sandwich dropped onto his desk. They found the evidence in his desk drawer, not even hidden well, just filed under closed cases. Hazel's missing person report marked low priority, despite being a kidnapping Melissa's case file with notes. Robert called. Delay this one too. Usual famfi. Bank deposit slips. $8,000 cash. April 10th, 2024. 3 days before Hazel was taken. Previous deposits. $8,000, July 2023. $8,000, March 2019. Week after Melissa disappeared. 28 years on the force. Clean record until Robert Hayes started paying him $8,000 per case to misfile paperwork, delay investigations, and tell grieving grandparents their concerns were probably nothing. For $8,000, Dale Mitchell had let a trafficking ring operate with police protection. For $8,000, Melissa Hayes had died alone in a cabin. For $8,000, Hazel Brennan had come within an hour of the same fate. "I want my lawyer," Mitchell said. "You'll need one," Bennett confirmed. 8:03 p.m. 3 minutes past the deadline Robert had given Hazel. But Hazel wasn't at Vincent's cabin. She was at St. Vincent's Hospital in Little Rock, in the pediatric ward, wearing a hospital gown with cartoon animals on it, eating Jell-O while a doctor examined the rope burns on her wrists and cataloged her injuries for the official medical report. Doc sat beside her the whole time, holding her hand when the doctor touched the bruises, explaining everything before it happened, making sure Hazel knew she was safe. At 8:15 p.m., Hazel's grandparents arrived. Martin and Dorothy Brennan had driven 3 hours from Asheville, North Carolina. Martin was 72, founder of a pharmaceutical company worth $14 million. Dorothy was 69, retired school teacher. Both looked like they'd aged 10 years in 4 days. They burst into Hazel's room and stopped dead at the sight of her. Alive. Safe. Real. "Grandpa!" Hazel's voice broke on the word. "Grandma!" She tried to get out of bed, but the IV line caught. Doc gently untangled it. Then Hazel was in her grandparents' arms, all 3 of them crying, holding each other like they'd never let go again. "We thought..." Martin couldn't finish. "When they said you were taken, we thought..." "The biker saved me," Hazel said between sobs. "The scary one with the beard. I gave him my note, and he came. They all came." Dorothy looked at Doc. "Thank you. Thank you. How can we ever..." "You don't need to thank us," Doc said quietly. "You just need to love her, which you clearly do." Outside in the hallway, Iron stood with Agent Bennett. "Final count?" Iron asked. 6 arrests, Bennett confirmed. Robert Hayes, Vincent Hayes, Marcus Webb, Officer Dale Mitchell, Diana Kramer, she's the forger who created the fake custody documents, and Carl Henderson, the motel manager who provided the no questions asked rooms. Patricia Morgan, the school administrator, has been fired, and her teaching license is under review for criminal negligence, but no charges yet. And the charges against Robert? Bennett's expression was grim satisfaction. Kidnapping, child endangerment, human trafficking, conspiracy to traffic, ransom demand, illegal restraint, assault on a minor, and first-degree murder for Melissa Hayes. Murder? Her remains were recovered from Vincent's property at 7:52 p.m. Medical examiner confirms cause of death as asphyxiation. Time of death matches the period when she was reported missing in 2019. Robert Hayes is facing death penalty. Iron nodded slowly. And Hazel? She'll need therapy. Years of it, probably. But she's got her grandparents. She's got resources. She's got a chance. Bennett paused. Because of you, Because of that note she trusted you with. Not me, Irons said. Us. 150 brothers who decided a 7-year-old was worth mobilizing for. Agent Bennett extended her hand. The FBI thanks you. Officially. On record. You preserved evidence, coordinated witnesses, and prevented what could have been a disaster if you'd gone vigilante. You did this right. Iron shook her hand. We just showed up. Hazel did the hard part. In the hospital room, Hazel was falling asleep in her grandmother's arms. Safe. Warm. Fed. Protected. Her last words before sleep took her. The scary man wasn't scary. He was just big. And Dorothy Brennan, holding her granddaughter, looked up at the Hells Angels patches visible through the doorway. 150 bikers who'd converged on Arkansas to save a child they'd never met. And understood something she never had before. Monsters don't wear leather and tattoos. Monsters wear polo shirts and friendly smiles. And sometimes the scariest-looking people in the room are exactly the ones you need. 3 days later, Monday, April 15th. The Benton County Courthouse was packed. Every seat filled. Standing room only in the back. News cameras lined the hallway outside. This wasn't just a local story anymore. This was national. Robert James Hayes sat at the defendant's table wearing an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs. His bail hearing had been set for $2 million. A man who'd stolen $15,000 from his own mother and gambled away $287,000 wasn't making bail anytime soon. The charges were read. First-degree kidnapping, human trafficking of a minor, conspiracy to traffic, ransom demand, illegal restraint, assault on a minor, first-degree murder in the death of Melissa Ann Hayes. Robert's public defender requested bail reduction. My client has no prior convictions, Your Honor. He has ties to the community. He has ties to a trafficking network operating across 3 states, the prosecutor interrupted. He murdered his stepdaughter in 2019 and would have done the same to Hazel Brennan if not for the intervention of civilians. He is a flight risk and a danger to children everywhere. The judge, Margaret Bennett, 62 years old, 28 years on the bench. Grandmother of 4, looked at Robert for a long moment. Bail denied. Trial date set for August 12th. Defendant remanded to custody without possibility of parole until trial. Next case. The gavel came down. Robert Hayes would never be free again. The others. Vincent Hayes. Arrested at his cabin. Charged with accessory to murder, accessory to kidnapping, human trafficking. Found guilty 3 months later. Sentenced to 35 years in federal prison. No parole eligibility. Marcus Webb, the buyer. Charged with human trafficking, conspiracy to traffic, 12 counts of purchasing children for exploitation. Evidence on his phone led to the recovery of 6 other children and the arrest of 8 additional traffickers across the network. Sentenced to 40 years. His trafficking ring, operating for 11 years across 6 states, dismantled completely. Officer Dale Mitchell, 28 years on the force, arrested for bribery, obstruction of justice, corruption, accessory after the fact to kidnapping and murder. His badge was stripped before he even made it to booking. Sentenced to 15 years, pension revoked, law enforcement career destroyed. At his sentencing, the judge said, "You were entrusted to protect the vulnerable, and you sold them for $8,000. There is no lower betrayal." Diana Kramer, the forger. Her laptop contained templates for 14 fake custody documents used in previous kidnappings, sentenced to 10 years. Her paralegal license had been revoked in 2017. She'd been creating fake legal documents for criminals ever since. Carl Henderson, The motel manager who provided no questions asked rooms and claimed his security cameras were broken when Hazel stayed there, sentenced to 5 years as an accessory. His motel was permanently closed by the county health department. Patricia Morgan, the school administrator who'd accepted Robert's forged papers with 38 seconds of review. No criminal charges, just negligence, not malice. But she was fired from Oakwood Elementary. Her teaching license was revoked. At the school board hearing, she sat silent, while parent after parent demanded accountability. Her last words: "I thought I was helping. I thought the paperwork was real." 12 years of education work ended because she chose convenience over a child's safety. 2 weeks after rescue, April 26th. Hazel was living with her grandparents in Asheville, North Carolina. Her father, Thomas Brennan, had been emergency deployed home from Japan. He'd arrived April 17th, 6 days after Hazel's rescue, and hadn't let her out of his sight since. The house on Maple Ridge Drive was exactly as Hazel remembered. Her bedroom still had the same purple comforter, the same stuffed animals on the shelf, the same glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling that her mom had put up 3 years ago, before the cancer, before the drowning that maybe wasn't an accident, before everything fell apart. But some things were different now. There were new locks on all the doors, installed by Tank and 3 other brothers who'd driven 6 hours to Asheville just to make sure Hazel felt safe. There was a security system, monitored 24/7, with panic buttons in Hazel's room and the kitchen. There was a therapist, Dr. Rebecca Morrison, child trauma specialist, who came to the house twice a week because Hazel wasn't ready to go to an office yet. And there were new rules. Hazel was never alone. School pickup required 2 forms of ID verification plus a phone call to her father. No overnight trips, no camps, nothing that separated her from family. Not because they were being overprotective, because Hazel had asked for these rules, needed them. Safety wasn't automatic anymore. It had to be built, verified, confirmed every single day. The therapy. Dr. Morrison sat cross-legged on the floor of Hazel's bedroom during their 3rd session. Not in a chair like a typical therapist. On the floor, at Hazel's level, playing with Play-Doh. "Can you tell me about the gas station?" Dr. Morrison asked gently. Hazel's hands worked the pink Play-Doh, squeezing it, shaping it into nothing in particular. "I was scared," Hazel whispered. "Robert said if I told anyone he'd hurt Grandma and Grandpa. He said he had their address. He said his friend was watching their house." "But you told anyway." "I didn't tell with words." Hazel looked up. "I told with the note, because he couldn't hear a note." "That was very smart." "I was scared the biker wouldn't find it, or wouldn't believe it, or would give it to the police and they'd tell Robert." Hazel's voice got smaller. "Because the police lady didn't help me when she pulled us over. I wanted to tell her, but Robert was looking at me and I couldn't make my voice work." "Officer Grant knows that now," Dr. Morrison said. "She wishes she'd asked you to step out of the car. She wishes she'd looked closer. She's changing how she does traffic stops because of you." "Really? Really? You taught her something important, that sometimes kids are too scared to speak up, so adults have to look harder." Hazel shaped the Play-Doh into a small boot. Purple, because that was the only color she'd chosen today. "The biker's boots were black," she said, "and really big. And I thought maybe if I could just touch them, just hide the note there, maybe he'd be strong enough to fight Robert. Because Robert was scared of bikers, I could tell. You chose the scariest-looking person in that parking lot." "Yeah." Hazel looked up, green eyes meeting Dr. Morrison's. Because scary-looking people were nicer than the nice-looking man. Dr. Morrison made a note, not for the session record, for herself. A reminder that children understand more than adults give them credit for. You're very brave, Hazel. I was very scared. Brave people are always scared. That's what makes them brave. 6 weeks after rescue, May 23rd, Hazel returned to school. Not Oakwood Elementary. Her grandparents had transferred her to Mountain View Academy, a private school with better security and verification protocols. Her first day, Hawk drove down from Arkansas to walk her into the building. Not as a biker. As a man in slacks and a button-down shirt, his Hells Angels vest left at home, his detective instincts very much present. "You ready?" Hawk asked, kneeling beside Hazel in the parking lot. She was wearing new purple sneakers. Light-up ones, just like her old pair. But these laces were tied. Both of them. Tight double knots her father had done that morning. "What if the teacher asks where I was?" Hazel whispered. "You tell her you were sick and missed some school. That's all you have to say. Your grandparents already talked to the principal. They know what happened. But your classmates don't need to know unless you want to tell them." "I don't want to tell them." "Then we don't tell them." Hawk offered his hand. "Come on, I'll walk you to your classroom. Make sure you know where everything is." They walked through the front doors together. Hazel's small hand in Hawk's large one. The front office staff had been briefed. New procedures, courtesy of Hazel's Law, legislation already being drafted in Arkansas, requiring schools to verify custody documents through government databases before releasing children. 3 seconds of digital verification. That's all it would have taken to stop Robert at Oakwood Elementary. Now it would be mandatory. 47 kidnapping attempts would be prevented in the next 18 months because of that law. 47 children who wouldn't go through what Hazel had gone through. All because a 7-year-old girl had been brave enough to hide a note in a stranger's boot. 3 months after rescue, July 12th, Iron got a phone call at 2 p.m. on a Saturday. He was in his garage, rebuilding a carburetor on a 1972 Harley, grease under his fingernails, classic rock playing on the radio. "Mr. Kane?" An older man's voice, formal. "This is Martin Brennan, Hazel's grandfather." Iron straightened immediately, wiped his hands on a rag. "Mr. Brennan, how's Hazel doing?" "That's why I'm calling." Martin's voice was warm. "We're having a small celebration tomorrow, Hazel's 8th birthday. She specifically asked if you and your, brothers could attend. Just a few of you, if that's possible. She wants to thank you in person." Iron felt his throat tighten. "We'd be honored. 2 o'clock tomorrow. Maple Ridge Drive. I'll text you the address. And Mr. Kane, bring that vest. Hazel wants to see the patches. She's been drawing them in art therapy." July 13th, Hazel's 8th birthday. The backyard of the Brennan house was decorated with purple streamers and balloons. A cake shaped like a motorcycle sat on the patio table. Chocolate with purple frosting. "Happy Birthday, Hazel," written in green icing to match her eyes. 20 people. Small gathering. Family, close friends, Dr. Morrison, and 5 Hells Angels who'd driven 6 hours for a 2-hour birthday party. Iron, Doc, Hawk, Tank, and Chains stood somewhat awkwardly near the fence, big men in leather vests surrounded by balloons and 8-year-olds. Hazel ran up to them the moment they arrived. She'd gained back the 20 pounds, plus 5 more. Her strawberry blonde hair was clean, brushed, tied back with a purple ribbon. The bruises were gone. The rope burns had faded to white lines on her wrists, scars that would remain but were healing. She was wearing a purple dress and new light-up sneakers, both laces tied. "You came!" Hazel's voice was pure joy. "Of course we came." Iron knelt down to her level. "Happy birthday, Hazel. I made you something." Hazel pulled a folded piece of paper from her dress pocket, handed it to Iron. He unfolded it carefully. It was a drawing. Crayon and marker. A little girl, with strawberry blonde hair, standing next to a huge man with a gray beard and a vest covered in patches. Above them, in careful child handwriting, "Thank you for believing me." Iron had faced down riots, survived bar fights, buried brothers, seen things in the Marines that still woke him up at night sweating. But looking at this drawing, at this child's gratitude for something that should have been automatic, should have been guaranteed, he felt tears burn his eyes. "This is the best gift I've ever received," Iron said quietly. "Really?" "Really." Hazel threw her arms around his neck, hugged him tight, and Iron, 6'4", sergeant-at-arms, scariest-looking man in most rooms, hugged her back gently, carefully, like she might break. Over Hazel's shoulder, he saw her father, Thomas Brennan, watching from the patio, former military himself. He nodded once, deep, a warrior's acknowledgement. "Thank you for bringing my daughter home. You're welcome." The conversation happened without words. 18 months later, October 2025. Hazel, Marie Brennan, stood in front of 300 people at the Arkansas State Capitol building. She was 9 years old now. 4th grade. Honor roll student. Still in therapy, but thriving. She wore a purple dress for the occasion. Purple had become her color, the color of her sneakers that day at the gas station, the color she'd chosen to represent courage. The occasion was the official signing of Hazel's Law, Senate Bill 447, requiring all schools in Arkansas to digitally verify custody documents before releasing children to non-parental guardians. Governor Sarah Mitchell stood beside Hazel at the podium. Behind them, a crowd of legislators, law enforcement, child advocates, and 150 Hells Angels who'd ridden to Little Rock for this moment. "Hazel," Governor Mitchell said gently, "would you like to say a few words?" Hazel stepped to the microphone. Someone adjusted it down to her height. She looked out at the crowd, found Iron in the 3rd row. He nodded. "You've got this." "My name is Hazel Marie Brennan," she said, voice small but steady. "When I was 7 years old, a bad man took me from my school. He had fake papers. My teacher looked at them for 38 seconds and believed them. She didn't call my dad or my grandparents. She didn't check with anyone. She just let him take me." The room was completely silent. "For 4 days I was scared all the time. Adults kept seeing me and not helping. A police officer, a gas station worker, a truck driver, people in a motel, they all saw something was wrong. But nobody asked, nobody checked, nobody wanted to cause trouble." Hazel's hands gripped the podium. "So I wrote a note, on a candy wrapper, with an eyebrow pencil I stole. And I hid it in a biker's boot because he was the biggest, scariest person I could find. And I thought, if he's strong enough to look scary, maybe he's strong enough to save me." A few people in the crowd were crying now. "He was." Hazel looked directly at Iron. "They all were. 150 bikers came to save me. Not because they knew me, not because they were paid, because I asked for help and they listened." She turned back to the crowd. "This law means teachers have to check, have to verify, have to make sure kids are safe before letting them go. It takes 3 seconds to check a computer database. 3 seconds could have stopped the bad man from taking me." Governor Mitchell placed a gentle hand on Hazel's shoulder. Since this law was drafted, Hazel continued, reading from notes Dr. Morrison had helped her prepare, 47 other kids have been protected. 47 times, a person with fake papers tried to take a child and the school computer said, "No, this isn't real." 47 kids who didn't have to be scared like I was. Hazel folded her notes. I learned something that I want other kids to know. Bad people don't always look bad. The man who took me looked nice, wore nice clothes, smiled a lot. But he was the scariest person I ever met. And the bikers, the ones who looked big and mean and covered in tattoos, they were the gentlest people I've ever known. She looked at the Hell's Angels in the crowd. You don't need a motorcycle to protect someone. You don't need tattoos or muscles or a leather vest. You just need to care enough to look closer, to ask questions, to believe kids when they're scared. Hazel's voice got stronger. If you see a kid who looks scared, believe them. Even if the adult with them seems nice. Even if it might be awkward. Even if you might be wrong. Ask anyway. Look closer. Care enough to cause trouble. The room erupted in applause. 300 people standing, clapping for a 9-year-old girl who'd survived hell and come out the other side braver than most adults would ever be. Governor Mitchell signed the bill. Hazel's signature went next to hers. Ceremonial, but meaningful. Hazel's law was official. And in the back of the room, 150 Hell's Angels stood in respectful silence, leather vests gleaming, patches identical, not a single one of them dry-eyed. The message. This story isn't really about bikers or patches or motorcycles thundering down highways at sunset. It's about a 7-year-old girl who had every reason to give up, who'd tried 3 times to escape and been punished each time, who'd watched 13 adults see her fear and look away, who had nothing and no one, choosing to try one more time anyway. It's about a choice. Hazel could have stayed silent in that gas station, could have gotten back in Robert's car, could have accepted that this was how her story ended. Instead, she made a plan. Stole an eyebrow pencil, saved a candy wrapper, untied her shoelace, picked her moment, and trusted the scariest-looking person she could find to be exactly what she needed, strong enough to fight for her. And here's what makes that choice extraordinary. Hazel understood something most adults forget. People who look dangerous aren't always dangerous, and people who look safe aren't always safe. Robert Hayes looked like somebody's nice uncle, wore polo shirts and khakis, smiled warmly, had forged documents that looked official, convinced a school administrator in 38 seconds. He was a monster wearing a friendly face. Iron Cane looked like every parent's nightmare. 6'4", covered in tattoos, leather vest with skull patches. Hell's Angels sergeant at arms. He was a protector wearing an intimidating face. Hazel saw past both masks. And that wisdom, that 7-year-old's understanding that appearances lie, saved her life. There are Hazels everywhere. Right now, in your town, in your state, in places that look safe and normal, there are children being hurt by people who smile in public. There are kids sitting in restaurants with adults who grip their wrists too tight. There are children in cars at gas stations, eyes screaming for help, while their mouths stay silent. There are students being picked up from school by people with forged papers and friendly explanations. And there are witnesses everywhere. People who see, people who notice, people who feel that something's wrong. But most of them do what Dale Simmons did, what Jennifer Mason did, what Officer Grant did. They look away. They choose comfort over courage. They choose "not my business" over "this child needs help." They choose assumptions over verification. And children suffer because of those choices. You don't need a Hell's Angels vest to be a protector. You don't need 150 brothers or chrome motorcycles or decades of riding experience. You need one thing: the willingness to look closer when something feels wrong. Pay attention. When a child hesitates before getting in a car, ask questions. When a kid has bruises and a shaky voice, don't accept "they fell" as an answer. When an adult grips a child too tightly, speaks for them constantly, won't let them out of sight, trust your instincts. When paperwork seems rushed or verification seems inadequate, slow down. Check. Verify. Cause trouble. Be awkward. Risk being wrong. Because here's what Patricia Morgan learned too late. Being wrong is embarrassing. Being right and staying silent is devastating. Ask the uncomfortable questions. Make the calls that feel intrusive. Trust the feeling in your gut that says, "This isn't right." Be the person a scared child can ask for help. Be the adult who looks closer instead of looking away. Be the one who chooses courage over comfort. Hazel taught us something profound that Friday afternoon. Sometimes the smallest voice is the one worth the loudest response. She whispered, "Please," to a stranger. And 150 men heard it across 3 states and answered with thunder. Not because she was their daughter, not because they were paid, not because it was easy or convenient or safe, because she asked. And because they understood that brotherhood, real brotherhood, means standing between evil and the innocent, no matter the cost. Epilogue. Present day. It's been 2 years since that Friday at the Pilot truck stop. Hazel is 10 years old now. 5th grade, president of her student council, volunteers at the local children's hospital reading to younger kids, takes karate classes twice a week, not because she's afraid, but because she likes feeling strong. She still has nightmares sometimes, still flinches when strangers touch her shoulder, still checks that doors are locked 3 times before bed. Healing doesn't work that way. You don't just get over being kidnapped. The scars remain, visible ones on her wrists, invisible ones in her heart. But she's not defined by what happened to her. She's defined by what she did about it. And she's become something extraordinary. An advocate. Hazel speaks at schools now, teaching kids about safety, teaching them that it's okay to say no to adults, okay to yell, okay to run, okay to ask scary-looking people for help if the nice-looking ones are hurting you. She's taught 300 students the phrase that might save their lives. This person is not my parent. Robert Hayes is serving 8 consecutive life sentences without possibility of parole. He'll die in prison. The others are serving their time. Marcus Webb's trafficking network led to 43 children being recovered, 43 families reunited, 43 lives saved. Officer Mitchell's arrest triggered an internal investigation that uncovered corruption in 12 precincts across Arkansas. 17 officers were fired. 23 were charged. The system that had protected predators for years was burned down and rebuilt. And Hazel's law has been adopted by 8 states beyond Arkansas. 14 more are considering it. Hundreds of thousands of children are safer because verification is now mandatory. All because one little girl refused to stay silent. The plastic Spider-Man figure. Remember that from the competitor story? Hazel doesn't have one of those. But she does have a pink starburst wrapper. The original. The one she wrote her note on. The FBI returned it after the trial, preserved in an evidence bag. Hazel keeps it in a frame on her bedroom wall, next to Iron's drawing, next to the photo from her 8th birthday, her standing between Iron and Doc, smiling, safe, reminders that courage comes in small packages, that help comes from unexpected places, that sometimes the person society tells you to fear is exactly the person who will save you. If this story moved you, subscribe to Gentle Bikers and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Comment and tell us, who was your protector? Or who did you protect when nobody else would? Let us know you stand with Hazel. With every scared child who's waiting for someone to notice, with every person who's brave enough to ask the awkward questions and make the uncomfortable calls. Because here's the truth. Hazel proved that golden hour at exit 67. You don't need a patch to be a protector. You don't need a motorcycle, or a beard, or tattoos. You just need to be the person who stops, who looks, who listens, who cares enough to act when a child whispers, "Please." The next Hazel might be in a restaurant you're eating at right now, at a gas station you stop at tomorrow, in a store you're shopping in next week. Will you see her? Will you look closer? Will you be the one who causes trouble because a child's safety matters more than avoiding awkwardness? The choice is yours. Make it count. The sun sets over Asheville on a warm October evening. Through the window of a house on Maple Ridge Drive, you can see a little girl with strawberry blonde hair doing homework at her desk. Her purple light-up sneakers, laces tied tight, sit by her bed. On her wall, a framed candy wrapper. Pink. Words written in brown eyebrow pencil, shaky but clear. He's not my dad. He has a gun. Please help. A reminder of the worst 4 days of her life. And proof that even in the darkest moments, courage whispers. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, someone hears it.